Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I wanted to weigh in on a topic that I've been seeing discussed across social media, but particularly in the financial and defensive circles of the Twitterverse in particular. That topic is of course the Taliban's new arsenal, or all of the equipment left behind by US and NATO forces to ostensibly be used by the Afghanistan National Army and police forces and other services to continue their fight against the Taliban. Of course, we all know how that went, and now a lot of people on social media have a lot of opinions about all of this equipment and all of the worth of this equipment left behind to now an enemy of the United States. One of the takes that I really want to try and address and dispel in this video is the idea that this is a massive intelligence coup for powers that are adversarial to the United States and US interests abroad, namely China, Russia, and Iran, akin to how the fall of the Shah in 1979 was a massive intelligence coup for those mostly the same powers, and of course giving the new Islamic Republic of Iran one of the most powerful air forces in the world. So if you don't know about this channel, I'm Spudknocker. I'm a trained historian who specializes in aerial warfare in the Middle East from the late 1960s through the 1980s. So I have a little bit of a background to kind of discuss this and really kind of transpose it against the fall of the Shah in 1979. I'm sure you guys are all very familiar with this infographic we have in front of us from the Times and the Sunday Times. It's been shared across Twitter so many times I can't even count how many times. A lot of the discussion about this so-called intelligence coup has been centered around the idea that the Taliban now have M113 APCs, Black Hawk helicopters, Super Tucanos, and C-130s. And a lot of people are saying that these are very advanced pieces of weaponry with very advanced sensors and all these things that are going to give China and Russia a huge leg up because, of course, the Taliban is definitely going to sell them to them. And Iran is probably going to get their hands in there as well and get a bunch of stuff that's going to make them more adversarial or more lethal to US forces abroad. So let's go ahead and dig into a few of these claims. I'm definitely more able to talk at length about the aircraft, the helicopters and fixed-wing aircraft, but I can also definitely weigh in on some of this ground equipment as well. So let's go ahead and zoom in on this infographic here, and let's take a look. So I think that the numbers of these pieces of equipment are what's staggering to people, and it definitely is a bit staggering to me as well. But let's kind of dig in and look at what the Taliban is actually getting here. 22,000 Humvees, that is a heck of a lot of multi-purpose transport vehicles. But honestly, so many Humvees have been used, so many Humvees have been lost, so many Humvees have been captured by the likes of the ISIS Caliphate and others across the Middle East and really across the world in lots of different hotspots, that the Humvee is nothing special, right? It's just a, four-wheeled, all-wheel drive vehicle that can kind of do a little bit of everything, and you can kind of mount anything on it, from, Zu-23 anti-aircraft guns to, 50 cal M2 Brownings, anything and everything. But they're not unique. China and Russia and even Iran have built their own kind of takes on the Humvee, and you can see a lot of vehicles that look very similar, if not the same, to an actual American-made Humvee. So really not that special. I'm sure the vast majority of them are out of service and are never going to actually be utilized by the Taliban. The M1117 is a, four-wheeled, essentially armored car, if you were going to look at it from like the classical view of what's a tank, what's an armored car, etc., etc. Again, not really anything that special. It's very similar to, say, a Soviet-era BTR type of armored vehicle. There's nothing that advanced about it. They were ordered specifically for the Afghan National Army. Nothing special there. Mine-proof vehicles, that's a very unique weapon to the, forever wars post-2001 that, was developed to protect American soldiers from, IEDs and ambushes and things like that. So I definitely see like the emotional, kind of emphasis that people put on this vehicle, and now being in the hands of the bad guys who it was developed to help defeat and protect our soldiers from. So I think that's more of an emotional thing. And you can even see videos of Marines taking sledgehammers to the sensitive components of these vehicles, on the airfield at Kabul International towards the end of the pullout. And then the big thing that I've been seeing a lot of people latch onto is the M113 APC. This is a armored personnel carrier that actually, comes from the original design back in the late 1950s. I believe it was introduced in 1962 to the United States Army and Marine Corps, used extensively in Vietnam, as well as exported widely across the world. You can't trip over a insurgent somewhere without also running smack into the side of an M113. The Vietnamese military still uses them because so many were left in Vietnam after the fall of Saigon. They were exported widely to Imperial Iran pre-1979, and the Iranian military still uses the M113 to this day. So the Iranians aren't going to get anything from the M113. The Russians definitely don't want them. The Chinese definitely don't want them. I could see the Taliban potentially selling them to other, small countries who need an APC, maybe Africa, Asia, maybe give some of them to the Iranians. But there is no intelligence value to an M113. It's just basically a Humvee, but with tracks, is basically all it is. Pickup trucks? There's no intelligence value there. Trucks, yeah, it's a strategic asset, I guess, in a way, is be able to move supplies around, for different logistics. But a truck is a truck, not much in the way of true intelligence value there. Radios, there could be some things such as radio scramblers and things like that could be of intelligence value, but those codes for scrambling radios and jumping frequencies and things like that can be changed so easily that the intelligence could be very good for tactical intelligence on the ground right now if there were American soldiers on the ground there who didn't know the Taliban had those codes, so they could listen in to the radio traffic between friendly forces. But in the long run, these radios are going to fall out of service very quickly. I would say the most concerning thing here, in my opinion, is the 16,000 pairs of night vision goggles and other night vision devices. As we go forward with the advance of technology and the proliferation of technology, not just military technology, but night vision devices are becoming more and more ubiquitous and easier for folks to get a hold of. And as a result, the United States, who used to absolutely 100% own the night, when it came to night fighting capabilities, that edge is being degraded. But as technology marches forward, better and better night vision systems are being fielded, and I would say that any night vision systems that were given ostensibly to the ANA are going to be more degraded systems, older systems, Gen 1, Gen 2, maybe some Gen 3 kind of systems, but nothing super top of the line. But it is concerning from my perspective that groups like the Taliban do have night vision systems. Assault rifles, that's a heck of a lot of assault rifles, but I bet you a number close to that is being manufactured almost every month in the United States and probably sold every month in the United States. And some number of those rifles are, make it outside of the United States to be sold by non-state actors to bad guys, unfortunately. A rifle is a rifle, whether it's an AK or a M16 or an M4. I think there's a lot of emotional value placed upon the rifle that is carried by American soldiers. And I will say that I definitely have an emotional reaction to seeing Taliban fighters with M4s, with ACOG scopes and lasers and all these kinds of things that it's like, fuck, man, those should be in the hands of Americans, not in the hands of horrible bad guys like Taliban fighters. But in the end, because modern warfare is so expansive and the basic infantryman on the ground is such a small piece of the larger cog, you could really give American soldiers, or any soldiers really, a more or less outdated rifle. You could equip them with M1 Garands, and it really wouldn't make all that too big of a difference on the modern battlefield. So a rifle is a rifle is a rifle. It's just a tool for the infantrymen to take and hold ground. Pistols, I mean, not quite that big of a deal. Pistols are sold, bought, and manufactured across the world. A pistol is a pistol is a pistol, even more so than a rifle, in my opinion. 176 artillery pieces, that's literally almost nothing. If you look at the number of artillery pieces used by Saddam to capture Kuwait and then subsequently readied for use against American and coalition forces in 1991 in the prelude to Operation Desert Storm, the number of artillery pieces is staggering. And thus the number of destroyed artillery pieces from the 1991 Gulf War is also massively staggering. This is literally nothing. So, and then people are kind of, latching onto, besides the M113s, people are really latching onto the aircraft that are involved. So this infographic is a little bit misleading in the way that it is laid out. This is the total number of aircraft acquired by the Afghan National Air Force for use against the Taliban and just general defensive duties inside the country. And a lot of these aircraft have actually been flown outside of Afghan and landed in places like Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, places like that are then interning the aircraft and pilots and figuring out what to do with them. So a much reduced number of these aircraft are actually in country to be potentially used by the Taliban. A lot of people are really latching on to the fact that, oh my gosh, the Taliban got BLACKHAWKS. What an intelligence coup for Iran and China and Russia. Oh my gosh, like they're gonna know how to build a helicopter. It's not that big of a deal at all. In fact, a lot of people tend to forget in 1986, the communist Chinese put an order in for 24 examples of the UH-60 and still operate them to this day. They haven't even lost a single airframe. They value these helicopters this highly in China, to the point where they already reverse engineered the BLACKHAWKS that they already had in their arsenal and are producing them at scale for use by the Chinese. So definitely look up, Google Chinese BLACKHAWKS, and you will definitely see a slew of photos of both the copies and the original BLACKHAWKS flown by the People's Liberation Army. In terms of BLACKHAWKS in Russia, I'm sure that there are some S-70s, which is the civilian version and the civilian model number of the UH-60 or H-60 family that's used by the militaries. It's a fantastic utility helicopter that is great for, fire rescue, for fire bombing, for just rescue of folks, as well as VIP transport, all kinds of things. So I would be shocked if there weren't at least a few S-70s hanging around in Russia itself. There aren't any in Iran, but big deal. The Iranians have gotten to look at crashed BLACKHAWKS across the Middle East for a long time now. The MD-530, this is another one that has no bearing in terms of intelligence value because of the fact that, funny enough, the North Koreans actually fly a very similar helicopter with a very similar setup to the MD-530. They, back in, I want to say the late 1990s, the North Koreans actually, through a bunch of subsidiaries, ordered a order of MD, I think 500s at that point, and then seized that shipment outside of North Korea, because obviously you can't deliver helicopters to North Korea, and then imported them themselves into North Korea. So you can definitely look up Little Bird Helicopter North Korea on Google and see pictures of North Korean Little Birds. It's kind of wacky, but definitely is out there. And C-130 transports, this is a massively old design. The model of C-130 that the ANAF actually flew was rather old and outdated to begin with, and the fact that there's nothing of real intelligence value on a C-130. Again, there are numerous examples of C-130s that are flown in the Islamic Republic of Iran Air Force to this day. They were delivered to Imperial Iran and then subsequently were used by the Islamic Republic of Iran after the fall of the Shah to this day. And then a lot of people are very much interested in the Super Tucano. A lot of these Super Tucanos actually made it out of Afghanistan and to be interned in places like Uzbekistan and other places. And people are saying, well, oh, the sensor balls on the Super Tucano, that's super secret stuff. Not really, no. China, Russia, even Iran has plenty of systems that use these quote-unquote sensor balls. Essentially what a sensor ball is it is a spherical ball, of course, with cameras inside of it, whether they're IR cameras or they're CCD cameras or just regular old TV cameras that are then on a gimbal-mounted ball that can be swirled around to actually look at the camera, point the camera wherever you want to point it at. You know, this is not something that's that secret. The Super Tucano is all off-the-shelf equipment. There's nothing all that secret to them. You know, we've been dropping weapons like GBU-12s and GBU-10s and things like that across the Middle East for so long now that, of course, countries like Iran or China or Russia have looked at a dud and been like, well, okay, it's a laser-guided bomb. We know how to do that. You know, there's nothing of all that serious intelligence value to a off-the-shelf built coin aircraft for a very small and very austere Air Force, you know, in the Afghan National Air Force. Cessna 208s, you can go ahead and buy those from Cessna. Just have them build some new ones and then they'll deliver them to you. No intelligence value there. The AC-208, again, sensor ball. People freak out with that term, sensor ball. Again, same thing with Super Tucano. It's not all that secret of a system, and if you really, really wanted to, you could just buy one if you wanted to, and say like you're going to put it on a, forest fire surveillance aircraft or something like that, and you could get one. It's really not that big of a deal, and it's not that advanced technology to figure out how to gimbal mount a ball to then move around and traverse around and point it at a target. So this is nothing comparable to the massive scale and quantity of equipment and very secretive equipment that was released to bad guys in the fall of the Shah in 1979. So I hope this kind of puts to rest some of the misconceptions about this equipment. I think what people really get caught up on is the emotional value of things like seeing Talibans with M16 and M4s. For some reason, M113s keep getting brought up, the emotional value of the mine-proof vehicles, and then people thinking like, oh, the UH-60, that's our helicopter. And, of course, they didn't mention the Mi-17 because everybody across the world flies those. They fly here in the United States, they fly in every continent on Earth, except for maybe Antarctica, so nothing of value there either. So I hope you guys, maybe learned something from this and got something out of this, because it is not an intelligence coup for any powers who are massively against the US or US interests abroad. It's unfortunate, and it's a lot of crap that shouldn't be out there on the open market or used by very awful Taliban forces to, oppress their own people, women, children, men, minorities, whatever it might be. But want to reiterate, this is not an intelligence coup for Russia, China, Iran, etc. So if you guys liked the video, please like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.